So welcome to our webinar. This is the Instructional Design and Learning Special Interest Group for STC. And we run a webinar series. Today we have a special treat. We are going to be hearing from Danielle Matthews. She presented at the STC Summit this year about accessibility and technical writing and how to increase the accessibility of our PDFs. She's going to show us a tool that we can use for that. Melissa went, one of our intrepid volunteers, she saw Danielle's presentation at the summit, and the very next meeting that we had as a group, she said, we have got to get this woman. And so we were lucky enough. When we asked Danielle, she said yes. And we're very, very happy about that. So I'm just going to give her a brief introduction that you've probably already seen because it's on the Eventbrite site. But Danielle says of herself, I make the complex understandable. And that's a good goal for all of us. She's PMP, and she's a Senior Technical Content Strategist for, how do you say that? Medidata?
Medidata, yeah.
All right, Solutions. And she supports clinical trials programs and apps, and she produces quality documentation with that. And being in the medical field, then I assume everything needs to be more than accessible. So she's got a lot of hours in the accessibility saddle. She's going to share that with us to make documents accessible. And one of the buzzwords we use around here is 508 compliant. And that is, as 508 is a subsection of the Individuals with Disabilities Act. I'm sure Danielle will tell us all about that. Anyway, I love what she says at the end of her bio, that if we would like more information about accessibility compliance at our company's documentation and software design, to ask Danielle. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Danielle. I'm going to ask you us to mute ourselves. Everyone does have microphone rights though. Danielle, when we have questions, you want them in the chat? You want people to speak up? How do you want us to handle that? I should have asked you earlier, sorry.
Probably chat, and maybe at the end would be best, unless it's like a burning question and you just can't wait.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be muting ourselves and using the chat to talk among ourselves. At the end of the webinar, probably sometime Saturday morning, everybody who signed up, including those who weren't able to make it live with us today, will get an email from me. It will have a link to the YouTube recording. It will have our chat that we have today, and it will have a link to Danielle's video demo and the slides that she has today. So it's time for me to mute myself. And Danielle, make us smarter, please.
Thanks, Vicki, and thanks, Melissa, for recommending the session. Try to move some of this out of the way. This is about accessibility and technical writing, and also a demonstration of CommonLook, which is a PDF accessibility tool. I appreciate you all joining today. I'm always excited to talk about accessibility and what we can all do to ensure that our documents and deliverables are accessible for everyone. So first we'll go through how disability and accessibility are defined, and then cover some standards for accessible documentation and websites. And then I'll take you through a demonstration of CommonLook. As I said, it's a great tool to make your PDFs and Word documents accessible. Questions are probably better at the end, but again, if you do have a burning question, I don't mind being interrupted. I'll provide my contact information at the end as well in the slides if you have more questions. So we can talk anytime you want. I promise I'm always excited to talk about this. So to begin, I want you to think about how you prefer to communicate. So do you prefer talking on the phone, or texting, or video, or in person? What do you prefer? Is it important for you to be able to see expressions, to take in the entire message? Or what about reading? If you like to read, do you prefer holding a book or a tablet? And then think about, how do you learn? Are you an auditory or visual learner? Do you learn best by doing and touching? And then think, what if suddenly you couldn't? What if you had to figure out a completely different way? What if you suddenly lost the ability to use your hands? Could you still do your job? What if your vision or your memory was impacted by a rough bout of COVID, and now the words on the screen are blurry, or flashing emojis in Slack or Messenger hurt your eyes and give you headaches? Would you know the tools in your programs and equipment to still do the things that you can do now? So even if it never happens to you, and hopefully it doesn't, millions of people across the world have to learn how to navigate a world not built for them. Each of you in your job and even in your daily life have a chance to help build a world that works for everyone. So how do you know when it works? Well, it works when it works for everyone. So each country defines disability for its own people. I'll share just two examples. In the US, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, defines disability as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. 61 million people, or about 20% of the US population, are considered disabled. So think about that. 61 million people who need information in a way they communicate. Accessibility standards from the US come from the ADA, which has been a law since July 26, 1990, and Federal Section 508, which was amended to include accessibility in electronic and communications technology in 1998, and it was recently updated in 2017. In the UK, they have the Disability Discrimination Act, the DDA, which defines disability as physical or mental impairment, which has substantial and long-term adverse effect on the ability to carry out normal day-to-day activity. So similar to the US, the UK has around a 20% disability rate. Naturally, their population is quite a bit smaller, so it's about 14.1 million people. The UK follows the DDA and the Equality Act. Just for this purpose, I'm going to focus on the ADA standards for the presentation, but the web standards are adopted globally for the most part. Okay, so what do we mean when we say accessibility? A product, program, or web page that is accessible can be used by those who require the use of assistive technology known as AT. This includes screen readers, refreshable braille displays, captioning, audio description, and keyboard controls. Also, color and design planning are very important. So think, can your document or web page be fully accessed by just using tab and enter? If you never tried just using tab and enter, I encourage you to do that to see how your information flows. Accessibility is a civil right under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it benefits everybody. It breaks down the barriers to information and technology, and it fosters communication and provides equal opportunities. So I can't understate the importance of making our documents accessible. Beyond the legal ramifications, everybody, no matter their physical ability or neurodiverse ability, should be able to access any tool or document that they need. Most likely, the programs that you already use have accessibility tools. Word, Adobe, PDF, FrameMaker, MatCat Flare have accessibility tools such as alt text, tagging, and accessibility checkers. It's very important to use the headers and other available formatting because the associated tags are already set for you. It's such a pain to try to go into each element, for example, in a PDF document to try to tag each thing. These programs already do it for you. They're not perfect, but they at least give you a good start. Microsoft Office 365 products like Word and PowerPoint have a check accessibility options under the Review tab. The options are check accessibility, alt text, navigation pane, focus, and options ease of access. Under the ease of access options, you can set the accessibility checker to run automatically in the background. And you can also set auto-generate alt text, but I recommend that you actually write your own. Adobe Pro has an accessibility checker that gives you a report and some explanation of what needs to be corrected. And also within Acrobat, you have a read aloud option, keyboard alternatives to a mouse, and the ability to read multiple columns as one, and other accessibility features. If you use FrameMaker, you also have alt text and tagging tools, which help generate better PDFs. For Madcap Flare, I've never used it, but what I learned at the summit, they have several accessibility options. I encourage you to reach out to either program, whatever you don't use, to ask. So is it enough? Are the features in these programs enough? Sort of. It's great, but you really need to check every tag, inspect every element, and check your alt text. These tools don't tell you if your alt text is wrong. So do what you can to build in time to check everything. I know as tech writers, sometimes we're the last to get the documents or the manuals or whatever, and we're up against deadlines, but do what you can. Okay, so we're going to look at 6 of the most common standards for documentation, and then we'll look at some web standards for those who might use Confluence or other web-based writing. So let's talk about alt text first. Alternative text is the full name. It describes images. The text is picked up by the screen readers and other assistive technology and conveys the image in words. General guideline is 125 characters or less, although your alt text box doesn't usually have a limit set. So how do you write alt text? First, figure out the purpose and the context of your image. Is it just decorative that doesn't really have a value? Then mark it as decorative. There's a little checkbox option. Does the image actually convey some meaning to go along with the text? Then describe it so that it fits in with the text in a concise and accurate way. Use the same terms and same flow as your text. That's what I mean by the bullet watch your language. Do not use only an image. An image is a supplement. It should not be the point. Also, a screen reader can't read the text in your image, so certainly don't use an image of text or an image of callouts in an image without typing all the text in the body of the document. The alt text is not meant to be your document. So the image of toothbrushes on the slide, maybe you're wondering why that's there. It's an example for you of why I said earlier not to rely on auto-generate. So auto-generate gave me a row of toothbrushes. Okay, fine, it is. But how much better would it be to say a horizontal row of 8 bamboo toothbrushes with different colored heads of bristles? And that's under 100 characters. Color contrast. Good color contrast helps ensure that your text can be read easily. If you happen to notice, all of my slides they're primarily black and white. It's because it's clear color contrast. There's not a bunch of things to clutter the page. Besides being important for those with low vision, blurry vision, or other vision difficulties, it also helps those who have some neurological conditions, ADD, and dyslexia to better figure how to focus on the text. So this image shows some examples of what constitutes good and bad contrast. The lines on the right may present some difficulty for those with visual impairments, or even as we age and our vision gets a little bit worse, or with COVID is causing some vision problems, things can get blurry. Several color contrast analyzers, or CCAs, such as the one at the website listed on this slide, they're available online to help you test your contrast and text readability. This, I'm not endorsing any products. This is just an example. Watch your colors though, because some people with color blindness do not benefit from the color at all, or they view it as a color that causes it to be a poor contrast. If you experiment with some color contrast analyzers, some of these colors like the blues or greens, they actually appear brown, and it can run into the text a bit. For me, with the red background, text is really blurry. I can't read it. This slide on accessible fonts provides a list of what's considered the most accessible fonts. So Tahoma, Calibri, Helvetica, Arial, Verdana, and Times New Roman. These fonts have the most clearly defined letters. The best size for those with low vision is a minimum of 14, with headings at least 2 higher than your body text. Most of our documents, of course, are 12, but if you can, make it larger. Here's a bonus tip. If you or someone you know has dyslexia, check your device and your apps such as Kindle. There's a dyslexia font. This is so exciting. It's especially helpful for reading books on your tablets or similar devices. So links. If you use links in your text, as I often do to link Confluence pages, make sure each link is unique. Describe where the link goes or tell its purpose with the words around the link. Don't just say click here. Yes, someone might be able to hover over the link, but it can be cumbersome if they're using assistive technology or trying to navigate without hands. So the second example listed says learn more about accessible PDF development at www.section508.gov, where the web address is the actual link. So yeah, do what you can to really avoid saying just click here. In addition to formatting standards, simplified writing or minimalist writing in plain language is helpful for everyone. It helps present a clean space so that users are not distracted by unnecessary words they don't understand, and anything that takes the focus away from the point. Plain language is also one of the greatest allies of neurodiversity. It's so helpful for those with dyslexia, ADHD, and other types of neurodiversity, and it's really great for everyone. Some tips: use active voice. Passive voice sentences are longer and can be harder to understand. Don't use metaphors, idioms, or other abstract figures of speech. Just clearly state your point. This is not college where you have a word count or they want certain page numbers. Just keep it simple. So use smaller paragraphs. Long paragraphs can get boring and people can lose focus. Bullet points are great because they act as a signal for important information. Okay, let's look at some standards for the web. In my current position, I use Confluence to write articles, and the articles and programs are web-based or app-based. So I attended a webinar on web accessibility a few months back, and the speaker, Bruce Bailey, he's an IT specialist for the US Access Board. He said, if it's not important enough to make accessible, it's not important to post. And I love that. It's applicable to all of our deliverables. The World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C, is the main international standards organization for the web, and it was founded in 1994. Its member organizations provide full-time staff to develop protocols and guidelines that ensure long-term growth for the web. So Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, or WCAG, you might hear, are developed by the Accessibility Guidelines Working Group, ADWG, part of the W3C, lots of acronyms. Version 2.0 was published in 2008, 2001, or 2.1 in 2018, and 2.2 draft will be finalized at the end of this year. All three of those, 2.0, 2.1, and then 2.2, those are the relevant standards right now. There are 12 to 13 standards organized into 4 principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And then each guideline has a testable success criteria at 3 levels of A, AA, and AAA. So for the web, all the other accessibility standards, including the ones I talked about, they apply, plus some others. I'm only sharing a few. With orientation, you want to create content that can be presented in different ways without losing information or structure. I don't know if you've ever tried to make a web page larger and then all of a sudden it just breaks. So you want to make sure that it can be, so someone who doesn't have mobility in their hands doesn't have to figure out how to move the tablet that might be attached to a wheelchair. So your content needs to be able to be viewable no matter how you're holding your tablet or your screen or how big you're making it. This is called reflow. The content can be enlarged without something disappearing or breaking. It's really disorienting to have to scroll right to left to read each line. If you've ever used Lucid's charts, it's just terrible for that. Non-text contrast of 3:1. This is for things like text boxes in a form. These boxes need to have a good contrast with the background, so those with low vision can actually see that there is a field to fill out. The same for icons and buttons. Make the contrast so that people aren't missing it. Especially for those with vision conditions that narrows the field of vision. Maybe they don't have the side vision. They can miss certain icons and buttons. So spacing, no single spacing. It's terrible. If you're writing for web pages or in Confluence, make sure your line, letter, and word spacing is at least the following: 1.5 times for line height and 2 for paragraphs, 0.12 for letter spacing and 0.16 for word spacing. Bonus tip, if you're using hover boxes for tips or definitions, make sure they don't cover the text, kind of like how the Zoom bar is covering the slide. Okay, let's move on to the CommonLook PDF demo. So CommonLook PDF defines itself as the industry-leading software tool that simplifies and accelerates the remediation process to ensure compliance with accessibility standards. Remediation means going through the entire PDF to make sure every line and element is tagged correctly. CommonLook also has a version for Microsoft Office if you use Word docs instead of PDFs. CommonLook also offers to do your documents for you. I don't know how much that is. It's currently not offered to individuals, but they will provide training for your team when you purchase a product, and they have additional training resources on their website. Not affiliated with CommonLook, I just think it's a really great tool. So let's take a look. I'm doing I'm going to talk over a video. So if the cursor is moving a little in a weird direction, it's just because I recorded it about 6 months ago. So I have a document in the center, one of the VA manuals, and on the side, CommonLook shows all of the tags on the left side. It pulls the tags from Adobe, and what we're going to do is make sure that they're all correct. Across the bottom, certain page tools, your standard, whatever percentage you need to make your documents. For me, it's pretty large. And then the different ways of scrolling. It has single page scrolling and or 2-page scrolling, or however you need to view it. I use single page scrolling so that it doesn't trip up and jump from the lines. On the left side, we have the standards. It has the ISO standards, section 508, WCAG, all of that. And then also on the right side, it has some alt text boxes. Across the top, you have most of the tools that you can access in right-click. It shows all of the tags that you can possibly think of. We have heading tags, paragraph tags, all of them are listed here. And then also you can access them through the right click on the left side. The settings tab, all sorts of settings in the program for how you want to view things, how you want to go left to right or right to left. depending on your language. And then you can set a certain color if you need to highlight things. The windows, some more options, also access the help. And then the operations tab with some more tools. Again, most of these you can access through right-clicking on the tags themselves in that left pane. When you click on a tag, it highlights it in the center of the page, so you always know where you are. If I click on the image, I can look over to the right and see the alt text is already there. You can correct it in there if it's not quite right. So in this video, I'm just clicking on the tags to highlight and make sure that they're correct. They're correct tags. This could be a heading. It says P tag for paragraph. Depending on what you want, you can change it. In the revision history here, the title is listed as an H2. Okay, fine. I'm just going to go down and make sure that these are all tagged correctly. If your paragraph tag has a link, you can always expand it to make sure that you have the right link in there. And then use right click to adjust it if it has to be adjusted. It does show the hyperlink, and it does show the text for the hyperlink in this case. So I'm going to keep going down. Tables can be a little tricky, especially for screen readers. CommonLook does have a table editor. Right-click access to the table editor, and it shows how all of the cells are aligned. It may look right to you, but to a screen reader, if the cells aren't aligned properly or they aren't tagged properly, it gets really confusing. So across the top, we have some heading tags. I'm going to control select all of them and then make sure that they're marked as table headers so that the screen readers can call those out correctly. Then all of the tags are table cells, and CommonLook provides an option to mark them so that when you click on a particular header or you click on a particular cell, it shows what header it's under. So even if you're clicking the table, you can do that. Table of contents are tricky, just as much as the tables are. But again, CommonLook is really helpful for fixing tables, table of contents, all of it. I always forget this, to go to the bottom and set the footers as footers so that at the end of each page, they're not reading the page number or the footer. CommonLook helps with that too. So this way it skips it. You can also, those are called artifacts. So you can see those on the other tab at the bottom. So back to the left side tags. Again, the process of making a document accessible is just going through each one of these tags and making sure they're correct. The table of contents in CommonLook, it can be a little funny. So what I do is just highlight the whole thing and mark it again as a table of contents. That helps it regenerate correctly. Just a tip if you are using CommonLook or if you are thinking about using it, just skip it and skip trying to click on everything and just redo your table of contents. You can see that it's marked as table of contents and then the elements under it. Especially for a document, if you have multiple table of contents like this one does, it's again very helpful to do that. So all of the things here, I'm just making sure that they're correct. If the headings are a little funny, then you can always go in and change the heading level to make sure that it's correct. Numbers, like the tables and table of contents or bullets, sometimes you have to make sure that those are correct within the, like open up each tag. Again, sometimes if it's just not looking right, you can highlight it and tag it again as a bullet or as a heading level, just to regenerate it. Not all the tags come over correctly from Adobe. So again, you do have to be careful. What I am doing here is just changing the tag by going up and to the convert tag and converting it to a paragraph. Same thing with lists. Sometimes it's easier to just copy them and or highlight them and tag them again as a list. That way it resets everything and it's correct again. So just continuing with the document, the process again is to just go through every tag. It's time consuming. If you do use CommonLook, you really have to build in one, a learning curve, but also enough time to do this. You can do, once you figure out how to use CommonLook, you can really do a couple of pages per minute. A big document like this one might take a few hours, but really it's worth it if you can build in the time to do it. So, okay, once I've gone through all the tags, I want to run a report. I want CommonLook to tell me all the things that maybe I missed. So I go over to the right side, I choose the standards, I'm choosing WCAG and ISO. You don't also have to choose 508 because it's also the same as WCAG. And then CommonLook generates this sort of a spreadsheet to tell you everything that's wrong. It also tells you everything that's right, so you can kind of skip that. There are a lot of elements, so instead of just choosing all, I'm going to uncheck that and go to the ones that are considered failed. It's a harsh word, but it's considered failure. Some of these you can correct right from here. Others you do have to go back into your document. If you change something here, if you change a tag or like alt text here, it doesn't save it to your original document. So you also have to remember to go back and do that change in your original document, especially if it's concerning alt text. It gives you exactly it gives you the description and it tells you the standards. You can right click in here on the description and it will offer a fix for you if it can, and then you can fix it right there. No problem. It does it for you. You don't have to go back in most of the cases to fix those things. Some of the tags, if there are ones that the links always tag as failures, so you have to go in and make sure they're correct. But if it's something like this where all of the descriptions or all the failures are the same, a really cool trick, instead of having to take the time to go through every single one, you can do a select all, which is what I'm doing here since they're really all the same. So like a shift select, and then you can right click on all of them. I'm going to change the status, and in this case, or you can edit it. I'm going to change the status to passed and then write a comment. So these comments do appear in the report, and it helps the person reading the report to understand why you changed it, or why it should be considered a pass. So the comment applies to every single one that I selected, and then it really clears up this list. So that's a big time saver. Again, with a fix, taking this the suggested fix, and it's very easy, very convenient. CommonLook is really helpful. So after going through the failures, I'm going to uncheck fail and just focus on the warnings. These are things that you have to be careful about, but maybe they're okay. You still need to check them. If like parent tags of links, again, you can make sure your alt text is okay. You can fix it here, but again, remember that you do have to go back to your source document and change it there. So write it down so you don't forget. this little screen, it does take some time because it basically regenerates it. Tables, not defining things. These are standard ones that you're going to see. The tables also need alt text. They need a summary. So this is typically something that, okay, maybe we always think about alt text, but we forget about the table itself. So CommonLook has a box to write a summary of what the table is. Really short. This is a revision history, so I'm just going to put revision history. If your table is more complex, certainly explain that. If your pages only have a header or only have a footer, it will present it as a warning. Obviously, this is how you want it to be. That's fine. Again, you can select all and clear those out. Right click, set it to pass or set it to not applicable, or you can edit it or edit the comment and add a comment. You don't have to add a comment, but it's a good idea, especially if you're submitting something like this document went to the VA. The VA is very particular about having the CommonLook report. So they do check those things, or any government agency that you're working with. They're under the 508 standards. They require the use of CommonLook. Again, the warnings, or this is user verification. This is going to ask you to verify the alt text. If you know that your alt text is correct, great. If not, just double check. The same process here of accepting a fix and moving on to the next one. User verification, they're not, again, required, just things that you should check. So the headings, the bookmarks don't generate correctly coming into CommonLook. So CommonLook just makes sure that you can have the right bookmarks and that a screen reader can tell the right headings. So that's very helpful. So at the end, I'm going to check all, and then I'm going to run report. This is a report that you can save to your desktop, and then if you have to send the document, you can send the actual document along with the report. So I'm saving it to my desktop here, and then we'll take a look at the report. Always remember to save. If you close it without saving, you're going to lose all your changes and you have to start over. You cannot come back into a report, the things that you're fixing. Once you start running the report, you have to finish. So this is the report. It has the name of the file, and then it has a summary. It says the failed statuses, and then each element, all hundreds of them that were in this document, it lists them all, and it lists the status, and then those comments that I wrote for all of them, you can see those comments here, and then where I wrote the same comment, where I selected them all and wrote one comment, it does show the comments for all of them. It can be a really long report, but again, especially if you're working for the government, they do require it. So that is the report. Again, I'm really excited about CommonLook. So some helpful resources or references. The U.S. Access Board is at www.access-board.gov. W3C and WCAG standards can be found at w3.org. And then the website for the ADA is www.ada.gov. For 508 compliance, specifically for the government, section 508.gov. And what's really cool about section 508.gov, you can find webinars. They give usually monthly webinars on anything from web accessibility, document accessibility, even accessibility standards for mini golf courses. That was the one for this month and last month as well. Golf courses, accessibility for residential buildings. I mean, just every topic you can think about. You can sign up for webinars, and then they have a fantastic archive of all of their webinars. And they even let you join in on the board meetings. You can listen in on what's coming ahead. Of course, CommonLook is commonlook.com. Very nice people over there. They'll be happy to give your company a demo. Again, it's just not for individuals. So what questions do you have? You can unmute yourself if you'd like and ask whatever you want.
Hi, I have a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thanks Danielle for interesting presentation. I've never seen CommonLook, so it's great to learn a little bit more about it. I have a couple questions about the application itself. So you say, you said a couple times you have to go back and save any changes in the original text. What do you, so you've uploaded a document and you've made changes, and so it only changes in the PDF, it doesn't change in the Word document. Is that what you're trying to say?
So yeah, if you're working with a PDF, it's only going to retag that PDF.
Okay.
So you don't have to, when I say you have to go back, if you fix the alt text, you have to, or it'll change it in the PDF, but let's say your source document was a Word document, or if it was FrameMaker, you have to go back into that document and change it there as well.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So there's no way, I guess it can't.
No, it doesn't.
No back talking.
Yeah, it doesn't feed back into FrameMaker. There is a way within FrameMaker now where you can import the documents, but it imports it almost like an image. It doesn't import each line.
Okay.
Really silly. Hopefully they'll fix that.
That's what I thought you were talking about. I was like, that's kind of a big pain that doesn't go back. And the other thing is a lot of work. So, I mean, the document you showed us had like 65 pages, which is you know, a fair amount. But for say a much smaller document, is it a cheat to just run the test after the accessibility test and sort of it picks up all the errors or failures? Or I'm just wondering, or should you really go through the whole document, see what you do appropriately and what you know, and then run the accessibility test?
So running the report first and fixing everything, kind of going backwards.
And it's like pressing fix all the time, like see what it shows up. Like, is that
so
is that like a lazy person?
You really could.
Okay.
But the more you use the program and the more you're aware of what it looks for, the less you're going to have to rely on going through everything.
Yeah.
Or if you know that you do certain things right, I don't go through everything because I already know how CommonLook handles it and I know how the PDF handles it. So really I focus on what I know I need to change, like the table of contents or a list or something. I always double check my alt text in the source program. So I don't really have to focus too much on, oh, did I do that right or something? The only, of course, I'm going to say that, yes, you should look at everything because randomly, especially if you're working with FrameMaker, the alt text just doesn't come over. It's just blank. And I look back at FrameMaker and I know it's there, but so, okay, it's up to you if you want to go through and check everything. But if it is quicker, especially if you're on a deadline, skip it and run the report first. Yeah,
okay. I didn't know if that was sort of, if it actually caught everything.
It really does. But CommonLook trainers will tell you to look everything, open everything. Once you get into it, really, you'll learn how to do, a couple pages in 10 minutes and you're fine.
Perfect. Thanks.
What other questions? Or comments, or like, what did you think about it? Do you think CommonLook is something that would be useful to you?
So Danielle, I don't know if you were able to see the question in the chat from Mike Nelson. And it was similar to what Christy was talking about, knowing where to fix what. And you addressed a little bit about the backward compatibility and how sometimes FrameMaker doesn't handle all of the metadata the way that you want it to. But anyway, Mike's question says, why not fix the source file and republish the PDF?
So yeah, absolutely. The only problem is that you have to regenerate the report. So if you're, halfway through going through that report, especially if it's hundreds of pages document, you might not want to regenerate it because then you have to start over. It doesn't save the work that you've already done. So that would be the only reason. Are there any other questions in the chat?
So this is Lynn. So I'm not quite understanding. So if you go back and fix the source and then rerun the report, wouldn't the report not have as many errors on it because you fixed it at the source?
Sure. But if there are things that you did have to fix, if you change something in your source document, it's not going to save all the CommonLook work that you've already done. You do have to start over. You have the report, but it's not going to be for that version of the document. So each time, even if you change, let's say you change one word in a document and you regenerate it, whatever CommonLook pulls up, like as warnings or user verification, you do have to do that all over again. Each time.
And that could be to select all and then make them.
Yeah, sure. So, if you know, then if this is your second time around the document, yeah, just select it all and wipe it out. As you go along learning CommonLook, you'll learn what you can select all for and what you have to really focus on.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done any FrameMaker work, but I just remember.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So that wouldn't be my focus, but it does look like there's quite a learning curve with this particular tool.
It really didn't take long because they're so good at providing the training. They provided like 2 days of training, live training, and then they recently created like a video library. So anytime you can go into the CommonLook into your account and pull up videos on things or troubleshoot or whatever, and they're very quick about getting back to any questions. They want you to pay if you want them to do it for you. But if you say, hey, I'm stuck on this and I can't get my table to regenerate, they're really quick about getting back to you and telling you how to fix it.
So did you do this on your own or as part of a team, or how did you bring it into your company?
Yeah, the team decided to use CommonLook because the VA hospitals, the federal government, was using, they wanted CommonLook reports. So the Veterans Administration specifically said they're running every document through CommonLook and they won't upload your document until it's correct. So our company decided to use CommonLook because we could attach the report and get out of that queue and get our documents published to the VA websites quickly because we had already done it. So that's why the company chose it.
Okay, thank you. That was really helpful.
My contact information is here as well, my email address. I'm on Twitter talking a lot about grammar, also some personal things, but I like talking about the Oxford comma. And also accessibility things from the US Access Board. You can contact me at any point if you want me to talk to your company about accessibility, give a little training on Word or PDF or design, whatever. Very willing to do that. Don't charge for it. So let me know if you have questions or if you want me to help you build a presentation of why CommonLook is a good idea or why accessibility is a good idea. I can help you do that as well.
So this is Lynn again, and I'm president of the for STC for the Puget Sound, actually the whole Pacific Northwest. And so you'll be hearing from me.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, I'm always happy to talk about it.
Awesome.
Hi, Danielle. I have another quick question. I've just been poking around on CommonLook's webpage for pricing, and it looks like it's commercial and government and educational. So for someone who is doing freelance or sort of contracting, is that something that makes sense economically or no?
They won't give it to you. They
That's
really
interesting.
will. Yeah, they really won't sell to an individual. I wish they would, but yeah, they don't. Not at this point. Maybe at some point.
What about a company of two?
Yeah, they'll sell to a company.
Okay,
But it
so
does have to, yeah.
Okay.
My team only had, I think, like 4 or 5 at that point.
Okay.
I have a different job now, but
Okay.
yeah, as long as it comes from a company, they're cool.
Okay, so have a company name and you're good. Thanks.
Basically, yeah. I had a friend who tried to get it personally, and basically she had to give the name of her business and prove that she was, you know, it was ridiculous. That they will work with an actual company though.
Danielle, this is Vicky. I wanted to ask a question. I think part of what I'm curious about is the SEO. Does this, the accessibility increase the SEO, the search engine optimization?
I don't see how it would.
Okay.
It doesn't change any of those elements. Unless you're maybe creating an accessibility tag or something and somebody's actually looking for it.
I was wondering about all of the tagging, and if the tagging is accessible, is it easier for the robots, the search engine robots, to pick it up? I'm always thinking about the robots. They're against us. So
yeah, they probably don't need the accessibility tools.
Actually, they do. Anything,
Okay.
any of that alt text, if you are able to work in keywords,
Okay.
that and
Yeah, I get that.
like virtually anything that a screen reader can read, the robots are good, the web bots are going to look at too. So
Cool.
in terms of making your site accessible, you're also making it SEO friendly. Page titles,
Good.
alt text, those are tags that especially Google is now looking at. I think part of what I sold Vicky on in terms of this particular webinar was that you're sort of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and I was getting mixed up with Joe Walensky's presentation that I also went to, so we have to go after him too for another webinar on accessibility and SEO. But yeah, it's actually true. Anything you do to improve the accessibility of your site is for a website. I'm not talking about documents, but for a website, you're also going to improve your SEO.
Yeah, I would, that's a good point about it being for the SEO for the websites. I was thinking documents and
right.
Yeah, that's a great point about the alt text too.
Yeah.
Yeah, CommonLook doesn't have a web tool. They're really just for the documents.
But I'm really glad that we had you redo this for us too, because it's absolutely so important to have our documents be accessible. I just didn't want you to think you were. I can put my foot in my mouth without even trying, and then I can fit both in there without trying. So
not at all. I really appreciate you answering that question.
Okay.
Well, and even if my company, I think, will not ever get the CommonLook tool, but just the discussion about contrast and about scrolling and just about, you know, thinking about my, I hadn't even really considered yet users that have a hard time with using their hands. You know, I thought about, I think a lot about vision. I think a lot about neurodiversity, but I hadn't yet. I haven't tried any of my web pages with what is it? tab and enter?
Yeah, yeah, see
Yeah.
what you can do with tab. Especially with the websites or with web-based programs, if you're developing those, how you tab, like US-based or English-based, left to right, you
Mhm.
want to make sure that it's not jumping all over the place.
Sounds scary.
Yeah. Hopefully the designers know what they're doing with that, but sometimes they miss something and enter doesn't open up the menu, or your arrow buttons don't go where they're supposed to go. Any other questions or comments? Or Vicki, should I turn it over to you at this point?
I was
Well-
going to say something more, and I agreed. The first half of the presentation, when you were talking about general information, I just finished a project with AWS, an instructional design project that was delivered in PowerPoint, and we had to go through and do a lot of the things that you talked about. But there was so much more that you mentioned that wasn't covered in the things that we had to do. So I really learned a lot from the first half of the presentation. And I'm going to go out and learn even more before I ask you to talk to our STC group. But I think that was the best part, more than the tool part. And I just want to thank you for the education today. So, and thank you, Vicki, for putting this together. It was really helpful.
It was the whole team, and unfortunately we have run out of time if we're going to keep within the hour. And so this is a time for the recording. I'm going to put us in gallery view. You want to unshare, Danielle? So this is the time where we do the jazz hands and the applause for Danielle. I think it's significant that we could have probably had this webinar scheduled for several hours. Danielle, you've just got so much to share, and we're eating it up. And we appreciate your support so much. So guys, this is a wrap for our first webinar of the new fiscal year for IDL. And we're already planning some more. Join us for the first Friday at 5. You can find us on our website. You will get a link if you're watching me now or you're watching me later. You will have gotten a link from me via the Eventbrite that you used to sign up. So we're going to all get back together. Maybe we'll have Danielle come out, and Lynn wants to steal my speaker, which I think is a good
it's imitation. You already created this. I just want to imitate it for our local chapter.
I think it's important information, and everybody should at least have a working knowledge. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.